Hello and welcome to The Mind Works with Craig. Thank you so much for your interest in my work and research and journey into understanding, managing and ultimately working towards overcoming anxiety. Anxiety is something that's very close to my heart as it's something that I've experienced personally throughout my life, and it has been the foundation as to why I became a therapist in the first instance. I'm never going to say that I know how you feel, because I don't. Nobody knows how you feel. Your anxiety is entirely unique to you. What I hope to do through the stuff that I'm going to show you today is to show you the journey as I see it for an individual to go through in order to understand, manage and ultimately overcome anxiety. I believe this is a similar journey that an individual would go on if they're struggling with starting a weight loss journey, or challenges around alcohol or substances, or if you're looking to understand burnout or fatigue. There are similarities within the journey that we'll go on. But for today, we'll be talking about it in the context of anxiety. So let's get into it. This is the anxiety journey. I believe that there are 8 stages. You may have seen some of the short videos that I've produced already on social media about the 8 stages, but in today's session we're going to go into those in a little bit more detail. As a result of the 8 stages, what I believe that we build for ourselves individually are 3 toolkits. Those toolkits deal with the present situation, and that's not just our mood and our mental health, but also everything that's going on around us in terms of our environment, our relationships and our physiological and physical health. And I'll talk through those in just a second. The second toolkit, that as I see it, is how to deal with the things that have happened to us in our lives to date. Our psychology is informed and directed and built on everything that's ever happened to us since the moment we were born, and possibly even before we were born. And understanding and making sense of the things that have happened to us, how that has shaped our personality and our psychology, both positively and negatively, is a really key part of understanding how we think and how we feel in the present moment. And the third toolkit is about the future, the type of person that we want to grow into and become, and how that we can go out into the world and get the things that we want and the things that we need, and how that we can build a version of ourselves to achieve our fullest potential. And those 3 toolkits is something that I've built for myself, and they are unique to me, and the toolkits that you'll need for yourself will be unique to you. Throughout this course, we'll be looking at the journey that we go through in order to develop those toolkits, and throughout that I'll be showing you additional tools and resources and different techniques that you can use that will help you to do this work for yourself. Some of the tools that I'll have to show you will resonate very, very deeply with you and find them very powerful, very emotive. And some of them won't resonate with you, and they simply won't work for you. There isn't ever a one-size-fits-all approach to this stuff. I believe the journey that we go on is broadly equivalent for us all, but the individual toolkits that we need for us are unique to us. And this is a key point of how I approach all work with my clients, whether it is through an app like this or group work, or whether it's in a traditional one-to-one setting, that it is the individual that is doing the work for themselves, and the therapist or the coach in this case is simply facilitating that work for them, for that person. If that resonates with you as somebody that wants to work in detail and in depth, then please do carry on watching and consider working with me, whether it's through the app or in a more traditional setting, as I'm really very passionate about helping people to work towards overcoming anxiety or whatever psychological challenges that they have within their life. So the present then, what are we thinking about in terms of the present? Our anxiety exists in the present moment, but generally it is being thoughts around what might happen in the future and what has happened in the past, and how that is creating our present reality. So we need a set of tools, a set of resources, and a set of techniques that we can use in order to manage our current emotional and physiological state. There's a free course available on my app which will help with that. It's called Just What Is Anxiety? There are 4 or 5 parts to it, includes a guided meditation self-hypnosis session, and it will give you a much deeper insight into what my take of what anxiety actually is. It's quite a difficult thing to define, particularly if you take a similar view to me, that anxiety is entirely unique to us individually. So, I believe that there are 4 pillars that really determine how we feel, in all senses of the word, in the present moment. And I'll go through those with you now. First off, we have our psychology. Essentially, that our thoughts, what we think about the situation that we find ourselves in at any given moment. And that can change on a day-to-day basis. We can think one way about a certain topic one day, and then on another day, we can think entirely differently about it. We've all had that experience, perhaps in a workplace, where one day something stressful happens and we feel like we've got huge resilience, huge grit, huge determination, huge fortitude, and we're able to simply brush it off and carry on with our day. Other days, perhaps when we feel a bit more tired or a bit more depleted or perhaps lower in mood or more anxious, so a similar situation or perhaps even the same situation could arise and it feels like it affects us very deeply. When we think about that from our own perspective, that there is something that must have changed within us in order for that situation to affect us differently, then we are able to take some control and some power into that situation and to think about it differently. Our psychology is essentially the accumulation of all that's happened to us throughout the course of our lives and the patterns that we've learned in order to deal with those situations throughout our lives. We cannot change what has happened to us in our life, particularly if your experience of anxiety is born out of earlier difficult experiences. What we can do is we can certainly change our viewpoints on it. We can change how we see ourselves in those earlier situations, irrespective of what they are or how challenging they are, and learn to think about them differently. We can also change our learned patterns of behaviour. We are able to learn new skills. We could learn to cook a new recipe. We could learn a musical instrument. We could learn to dance. We could learn a foreign language. And we're able to use the brain's natural ability to learn and equally unlearn whatever patterns of behaviour, whatever patterns of emotional response that we have, we are able to change those. It's not easy to do that, but it is certainly possible through practice and through work and understanding the fundamentals of how our brain actually works, using something called neuroplasticity. Our brain is in a constant state of learning and unlearning and interpreting and making meaning from our environment, our situation, and our relationships. So we're able to kind of leverage, if you want, our brain's ability to do that so we can change our psychology. We have our physiological health. This is the next pillar. And the way I define that is our brain and body's chemistry right now, in this moment. And that changes. It can change over the course of minutes. Right now, there is oxygen in my blood, there is blood sugar, there is water, and that is changing and evolving. Just as I give this presentation, my energy level throughout the course of the day will change as I use the energy from the food that I've eaten in the last 24 hours or so. So our physiological health is a very fluid thing. It exists in a state of flux, and we can learn how to manage that really better. And for me, it's a really key part of managing our anxieties to be looking after our physiological health as best as we can. Then our physical health, that is the structures of our body, the physical structures of our brain and body. And that is our musculature, our bones, our skeletal system, the organs of our body. How healthy and functional those things are will have an effect on our physiological health, which then has an effect on our psychology. And similarly, our psychology has an effect on our body's chemistry, which can have an effect on our body's physical structure. So balancing these three things is difficult, it's hard work, but we can learn simple and incremental steps as to how we improve these different aspects of our health in any given moment. And then the fourth pillar of our emotional well-being, the things that are going on right now for us, is our environment and our relationships, our external world as it is. Human beings are a tribal species. We need to have relationships with others in order to live a happy and a successful life. And sometimes those relationships can be challenging. Sometimes we find ourselves in difficult environments, and that can be challenging too. So learning how our brain and our physiology and psychology responds to those environments, those relationships, is a key and crucial part in managing our experience of anxiety. So your environment and relationships is the world around you. And in this section I've also included finances. Now I'm not saying that money makes us happy or anything along those lines, but what I'm saying, based on my own experience over the course of my life, is that if you have money worries or times are tight, as they are now, that this can have an effect on your psychology and that this can have an effect on your physiological health, and there are problems downstream of that. Because of that and my passion in order to get this information out to people, I'm trying to work with people in a new cost-effective way rather than the traditional one-to-one therapy approach, which unfortunately can be cost prohibitive to a number of people, particularly given the current economic climate that we find ourselves in. So making this information within reach via new technology is something that I'm really keen to do, to make sure that I'm able to share this stuff with as many people as possible. So the 8 stages then. So this is a journey that I think that an individual would go on in order to develop those 3 toolkits that we've discussed, to understand their present, their past, and to develop a sense of the future, to understand those 4 pillars, our psychology, our physiological health, our physical health, and making sense of our environment and our relationships. So let's get into those 8 stages. The first stage, as I see it, is to start the journey. Now that might sound obvious, that I'm here, I'm looking to understand my anxiety, I'm looking to work on it. I think there is a real key step in when we make that decision, understanding what is going on right now for us and deciding that we are going to empower ourselves in order to look at these things in more detail. There is some stuff that needs to be done in that section to give ourselves a good foundation, a good start point in order to start the work. And that's what we cover in the first module. And it's about accepting that start position. Oftentimes we want to run to the end. We want to get to the end and not feel anxious anymore, or for people that are approaching me because they want to perhaps lose weight, they want to get to their end weight goal, or for people that are experiencing fatigue and burnout, they just want to get back to the energy levels and enjoyment they had in life previously. But where we start that journey is to accept where we are presently, and that is more challenging than it might first appear. So in this module we cover just how to do that and what we need to say to ourselves on the inside in order to get going with the work proper. That leads us into the second stage, which is a challenging one. This is a stage that I call proactive responsibility. It's very empowering, but it can feel overwhelming at the start, is that we do have an element of control. We are able to influence how our mind works, how our bodies operate on a day-to-day basis, and that we can empower ourselves to take proactive responsibility over those things. And we do that incrementally. The example I give here is that it is an absolute known truth, and it cannot be argued, that physical exercise will help to improve somebody's mental health. However, if an individual is really struggling with acute anxiety, or they're really struggling with acute depression, we'll use that for an example now, and perhaps they haven't been able to get out of bed for 48 hours, saying to that person that they need to exercise in order to improve their health overall, both physically and mentally, is going to be out of reach in that moment. So we need to develop a set of tools that work for us wherever we find ourselves in terms of our mood, in terms of our energy level. I know for me personally, when I feel broadly well and broadly okay and broadly good in mood, then I am able to go and exercise. If my mood or energy levels start to drop, that starts to feel out of reach. And then I can find myself beating myself or berating myself for not doing the things that I know I need to help, that would help improve my current situation, my current lot. So what I've done for myself personally is to develop sets of tools that help me to get back to a stage where doing exercise, which is undeniably good for our mental health, help me to get back to a stage where I can do that. That is a real key message of how I work with people, is to do what you can where you are in that moment, not to overreach and beat yourself up because you're not able to do the things that we are told through the received wisdom of our society will improve our mental health. Many of the tools that we're offered in terms of our mental health are for when we feel okay and we're on the way up. If we find ourselves in a low place, it can be very, very challenging to do those things. So to be able to have an honest conversation with ourselves on the inside about how we feel right now, and to do the thing that is going to help us to get to the next stage, and then the next stage beyond that, I think is absolutely crucial and critical, and is something that's massively overlooked. So taking proactive responsibility so that we incrementally improve how we feel overall, so that we can in the future get to a stage where we are perhaps exercising, or we're doing the things that we know will have those long-term benefits for our overall well-being, be that mental or physical. The third stage is about protecting your health and energy, and really builds on that proactive responsibility piece. That if we look after our sleep, our nutrition, our hydration, our movement as best we can, then that is going to have a really positive effect to our well-being overall. I don't believe that this stage of looking after all of those things will resolve our anxiety on its own. I don't believe that we can, through diet or exercise or supplementation or any one thing on its own, completely resolve our anxiety. That's certainly my experience. And equally, we won't resolve our anxiety if we don't do this stage. That if we don't eat right, if we don't move right, if we don't get our sleep right, those being the three foundational parts of this module, that I don't think we could have a reasonable prospect of getting to the next stage and working towards overcoming anxiety. This is difficult to do. There are challenges involved in this section, as there are in each stage. And again, it's about that incremental process of improving our health where we can, so that we give ourselves the best shot of moving through the journey overall. The fourth stage is, again, builds on that purposeful and structured action, figuring out the things that work for us that we can do irrespective of where we find ourselves at any given point, and finding methods and techniques that are proven to help individuals, and developing those and refining those so they work for us individually. My experience of working through anxiety is taking me down many rabbit holes and into various different techniques and various different methodologies. I can't say that, sorry. And all of those things have value and substance to them. They are useful in certain ways. But I found that I was trying this and then that and then this and then the other. And I was kind of really fragmented in my approach. What I've found works for me, and I think will work for others too, is to find 5, 6, 10 things that really do work for us consistently, and we can prove to ourselves that they have an incremental benefit, and then we use those in a very structured and a very purposeful way. When we develop our future version toolkit and we look at the past, then there is a structure to follow. There is a process to follow in order to work through those different areas as well. And I'll share with you those as the course develops. Once we get our health to a stage where we have some strength and some resilience and some fortitude, and we're starting to feel kind of better in ourselves, then that's when we start to look backwards. We start to look at the events of our past, both positive and negative, and to see how they are informing and directing our psychology as it is today. Although not the case for everyone, certainly for many people that I've spoken to, and for myself, that in our past there have been difficult and challenging situations, emotional situations, traumatic situations. Now, it isn't possible to change what has happened in our past. What we are able to do is we are able to change the meaning and the significance of what has happened to us in our lives, and to change how we think about that. That's really challenging, really difficult work, and it requires an investment of time and energy and effort and emotion. And that is difficult, but I promise it is absolutely worth it. When we're able to make sense of the past and resolve it, not to delete it, not to get rid of it, not to hide it away from ourselves, but to hold it gently within our hands and look at it and go, yeah, that stuff affected me and it's still affecting me now, but I'm going to change how I think and how I feel about it, then that has a powerful repercussion through our life as it is presently and for our entire future. Again, it is difficult to do, and I promise it's worth it, and it is certainly possible to change how we think and we feel about the past. Stage 6. So once we've got us to a stage where we have resolved, largely as best anyone can, the events of our past, it's time for some fun. When the human brain has structures and chemicals and specific systems that operate for having fun. And if you've been experiencing anxiety or depression or recovering from trauma or addiction, or perhaps you're experiencing burnout or chronic fatigue, fun can feel like miles away. When we start to understand ourselves a little bit better, we can start to open ourselves up to experiencing fun and joy and authentic connection with other people. As I said before, human beings are a tribal species. We all need to have various different types of relationships where we can express ourselves and connect authentically with people and to have some fun. And thinking about what it is that we actually enjoy, what brings us joy in our lives is absolutely crucial if we want to build a future for ourselves. And for those that have experienced acute mental health problems, that can feel like it's miles away, it can feel like it's impossible. One thing that is known about the experience of burnout is the reduction of enjoyment and pleasure that can be derived from things that we might have historically enjoyed. One thing that we know about addiction from a neurobiological perspective is that the enjoyment that can be derived from anything other than the tool of addiction, perhaps it's the drink or the drugs or whatever else, is narrowed so that it almost becomes impossible to enjoy other things. When we get to this stage, we start to open that back up to think about the things that we actually enjoy for ourselves deep down on the inside. Again, a challenging thing to do, particularly for in our busy modern lives where finances may be strained and time may be under pressure and responsibilities and commitments, but it is something that we are able to do and to work on and to build on incrementally. Stage 7 is learning to be true to ourselves, and in this stage we start to think about what it is we want and what it is we need for the rest of our lives. And we start to develop a plan as to who we're going to become in the future as a result of doing all of this hard work, how we want to be. Which then leads us into our final stage, which I call accepting, expressing and asserting, taking action equals what we might commonly call inner peace. The first, one of the earlier incarnations of this app was Mission Inner Peace. I set myself quite a lofty challenge of getting to a stage where I felt a sense of inner peace within myself. What I've come to realise is that the way in which we do that is we are true to ourselves. We have fun, we have joy, and we have authentic and open connection with people. And we accept what has happened in the past, we accept perhaps our flaws and our mistakes, and that we start expressing ourselves truly, we start asserting ourselves. And asserting has a kind of very potent meaning. It sounds like we're going to be assertive and ride roughshod over other people, take other things from other people. It doesn't mean that at all. What it means is we're going to start to think about the things that we need and how we go out into the world and get those things that we need. And it can be that as we do that, we lift other people up around us. And that all requires taking action. If we just sit and as I've done, and ponder the nature of all of this stuff and don't ever take any action, then we just sit and nothing ever really happens. So in the final stage of the journey, which I think, in my opinion and my belief and experience, is the one that we aim to stay in for the remainder of our lives, to get somewhere close to what we might call inner peace, we start accepting things more as they actually are. We start expressing ourselves more authentically. We start asserting ourselves, getting the things that we need without impacting others and lifting other people up around us. And we do that all by taking action. So they're the 8 stages as I see them. And in going through those 8 stages, we build our 3 toolkits for the present and the past and then into the future. That course starts on the 24th of June 2024, so from today, a little over 3 weeks away. It will be available as a Zoom call Q&A session, both on Mondays and on Saturdays. But if Zoom calls aren't really your thing because you're feeling anxious, absolutely fine. There'll be an e-learning version of this course for you to work through at your own pace. And the pricing for this, I really do want to make this within reach of as many people as I possibly can. So the pricing is $13.99 per month. It's not a fixed course because I believe this is a journey, one that we may need to be on for a period of time. It may be that you start a section, make your way through some of those stages and then circle back to an earlier stage. That's certainly my experience. In recent times I found myself right back at the beginning, but because I've done the work in most of the stages, I can get myself back up to the later stages pretty quickly and pretty effectively. It may be that you want the support from me through the app, and it may be that you work with the other people on the course and find a sense of community there too, for people that are like-minded like you, that want to work in detail and depth on your own psychology and your own well-being. So, if that's of interest to you, then and you want to get more of a feel, more of a flavour of my style, my approach, and some of the tools that I've got for you, there is a free course available on the app. It's called What is Anxiety? It's about, overall, there's about 2 hours worth of stuff to work through. There's a guided meditation, self-hypnosis session. There's some neurobiological tools that you can use in order to help to get out of your own mind and to be more in the present moment. And that is there available entirely with my compliments. There's no free trial, none of that nonsense. You can just use that. It's my kind of basic introduction to how I work with anxiety, and I want as many people to have the benefit from that as I possibly can reach. So if that's of interest to you, you can find that on the app. If you'd like to register for the course that starts on the 24th of June, I'd love it if you came along, and I'd love to work with you. If more traditional one-to-one therapy is of interest to you, working with me in a clinical therapy setting, then please do send me a message, and we can talk more about that. And you can book a 30-minute consultation call, again with no cost, to discuss any questions that you may have about how it would work for you. Thanks very much for your time and your interest in the Mind Works with Craig and the anxiety journey. Really do appreciate you taking the time to watch. Thanks a lot.